deal. He was released last week by Washington. Second week of the NFL preseason. 7 games. Bengals over the Cowboys, 21-13. Zach Martin, the guard, had an MRI this morning after hyperextending his left knee in the second quarter. The team optimistic he'll be okay. Jameis Winston, 226 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bucks over the Titans, 30-14. Jimmy Garoppolo, Deshaun Watson, both throwing touchdowns. Texans get the win, though, over the Niners, 16-13. Vikings lose to the Jags, 14-10. 6 Vikings were hurt in that game. Bears a couple of touchdowns late in the fourth. They beat the Broncos 24-23. Seahawks lose to the Chargers by 10. Russell Wilson, 193 yards passing. College football news. Georgia freshman running back Zamir White tore his ACL in his left knee covering a punt during Saturday's scrimmage. UGA fears he will miss the rest of the season. Major League Baseball game is about to get underway here in a couple of hours at 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Yankees looking to sweep the Jays in the Bronx. Red Sox a chance to do the same to the Rays at Fenway. Boston pitcher Chris Sale was put on the disabled list for a second time.
(11:40 a.m.) The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbranson and Matt Gutierrez.
Sunday Fun Day, Raider Nation. Welcome back to Las Vegas's only All Raiders talk show here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. We're back here in the Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studios for another week of Raiders football talk. Hi, I'm Scott Gulbranson, the publisher of silverandblacktoday.com, joined, as always, by my co-host, Matt Gutierrez, the man with the plan. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man?
Oh.
Let me tell you a quick story. You ready for this?
Yes.
So my son plays roller hockey.
Yes.
Yesterday, good game. He's the Bruins playing against the Kings. It's 4-4 with 3 minutes to go. My son sets up down in the crease. Get a little breakaway. Pass comes over.
Boom.
The one-timer, game-winning goal, man. They won 5-4.
Nice.
It's his first game winner.
Man,
I was pretty stoked.
As a father, that's always
Dude,
the
it
best
was
feeling.
awesome.
That's
It was
the best
awesome.
feeling. My best ever. I'm proud of all my kids, but my oldest son, we went to Cooperstown for the baseball tournament. Of course, we stayed there the week, and had the worst few games starting out. Right, just horrible. He was striking out. I was like, dude, you're just not hitting. I felt bad for him because he was not having as good of a time. Next game comes up, hits a home run, and then he hits another home run. So it's like back-to-back home runs, just great.
Got
I have
the groove.
have it on video, man. It's fun. It's
It
fun
was
to
the
watch.
best.
Anyway, each week we meet you here to talk Raiders football, but we want you to be part of the show. You're the third host, actually. That's right. What did you think of yesterday's game? Who's going to be who's going to be the backup quarterback, Cook or Manuel? Boy, we'll have that discussion.
Yeah.
What running backs are going to make this 53-man roster? What wide receivers? I think they got a logjam there. We'll talk about that. Call us at 702-889-5978 and tell us what you think. Don't be a poltroon. That's right. Look it up, folks. Call us at 702-889-5978. A reminder, we are streaming today's show live on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, where you can see my 48-year-old receding hairline. That's right. So you can watch as well as listen to us. The venerable Tony Cardasco is directing our video today. Thank you, Tony. Also, interact with us on Twitter, Silver Black, the number 2 day. Silver Black Today on Twitter. We'll take your questions and more. We usually get a lot there, a lot of DMs, right, Matt?
Yeah.
DMs during the show. The first hour of the show will review yesterday's game and be joined at 8:30 by the Athletic LA's NFL writer and longtime columnist and a friend of the show, Vinny Bonsignore. We'll review the Rams and Raiders game and get his opinion on what, if anything, we learned about Oakland in this ugly and frankly boring affair. Vinny will also fill us in on AFC West news and anything else NFL-wide as we discuss. Just a great guy and a source of league information. Vinny will be with us for 2 segments because we have so much to talk about, including the NFL rules changes, which I have some strong feelings about, Matt.
Yeah, man. They need to. We'll get into it.
We'll get
into it.
That's right. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Then in the second hour at 9:15, we'll reach out on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line all the way to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and talk to Bill Rabeor of WDZU, The Fan, to talk Packers football and look ahead to Friday's game against the Raiders in Oakland. Is Aaron Rodgers all the way back? And how much will the team miss Jordy Nelson, now a Raider? We'll ask Bill and get the Cheesehead update. Then, later on in the show, you don't want to miss this, today we will debut Matt's new segment, which I've named, and he doesn't even know this yet. You ready?
Yeah.
It's called The Audible.
All right.
All right? That works for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I played quarterback in my flag football league. I can handle the audible.
But I figure since it's going to change and we'll do it late in the week, that'll be it. Matt will pick a subject each week at his discretion, and we'll discuss and get your views on the subject. So pick up that phone in the second hour and get in on the dog pile. Can we tease people on what you're going to talk about?
We're gonna get into a little. How should we phrase this? Because I don't want to get political with
Pre-game
it
ceremony
at all. But yeah, we'll.
Pre-game ceremony related
Sounds
information.
Good. Yeah, we'll go with that direction.
All right, we'll talk about that. It's going to be fun. And we won't be political.
Because I'm not.
We don't want to do that.
I'm not going to take a political stance on anything generally, but I want to hear opinions out there. Again, 702-889-5978, and we'll get into it later on in the show. But I want to hear from people out there. I want to know what their stance is, why they feel the way that they do, one way or the other. I don't care which way you come from.
Right.
Just I want to hear it. I want to know.
Valid.
I want to know what you have to say about it, because I think this is something that needs to be talked about. It needs to be talked about in a logical kind of sense, not in these just outrage, fake takes, false outrage kind of ways.
Yes, I am not a fan of the outrage culture. We'll talk about that as well. And we'll close out the show with a look ahead ourselves at the Packers game and give you 3 things we want to see on Friday as the Silver and Black return to Oakland to face the Packers. There you have it, Raider Nation. You're up to date. We've set topics on the table for you. Now it's your time to chime in. Let's go. I mean, it is football season. Call in. We want to hear what you have to say. It doesn't matter where you're at. We all have cell phones now. You can call long distance. It doesn't matter anymore. Make sure you chime in. Call us here on the Silver and Black today at CBS Sports Radio, 702-889-5978, and tell us what you think. Now, real quick, we're going to take a look back at yesterday's game with a quick game overview and highlights, if you want to call it that.
Preseason week number 2 for the Oakland Raiders meant a return to their past in the form of the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. For the first time since 1994, the Silver and Black invaded the historic stadium they called home for 13 seasons, including the magical year of 1983, when they won what is still Los Angeles' only Super Bowl championship. The current Raiders sat their starters so Coach John Gruden could get a good look at his rookies and veterans, all fighting for roster spots. The game did not start well for the Raiders. On their first offensive possession, a bungled snap couldn't be reined in by quarterback Connor Cook.
In the backfield today, the former Texas Longhorn, and a high snap over Connor Cook's head. He's going to take it, and he's going to slide down, and getting credit for that easy sack.
In fact, the Raiders' offense did not play well all day. Gruden had a bleak assessment after the team's 19-15 loss to his former protege, Sean McVay, and the Los Angeles Rams.
I like what our defense did. I thought our defense played very well. I thought the first play of the game pretty much summed up the offense. You jerk a center 15 yards over your quarterback's head. You have 2 holding calls, one on 1st and 10 and one on 2nd and 1. It's ridiculous. We don't pass protect in a 2-minute drill, and our quarterbacks put the ball on the ground with carelessness. It wasn't good enough, and it's flat out embarrassing, honestly.
What wasn't embarrassing for the Raiders on this day was the fact that Chris Warren III, the undrafted free agent running back out of Texas, ran the ball 10 times for 101 yards, including a 3-yard touchdown.
The way he's running, he's not only going to make the team, he's going to play. It's a guy that Texas tried to move to tight end at one point. Chris Warren will walk into the end zone.
The ineffectiveness of the Raiders' backup quarterbacks raises another big red flag. A week after having a great game against the Detroit Lions, Connor Cook did not do so well against the Rams.
Cook, that ball's out. Ball loose on the turf. Picked up by the Rams and run back inside the 20.
Veteran backup E.J. Manuel wasn't any better. He, for the second straight week, turned the ball over as well, hurting the Raiders on offense.
Manuel again. Pressured again. Ball is out. Ball is kicked. Bryce Hager has it for the Rams. Flag is out. Hager on the run back. Hager wrestled by E.J. Manuel down at the 10.
Gruden emphasized in his post-game press conference that the backup quarterbacks must get better.
E.J. did some good things. I thought Connor did a couple good things, but, fumbling a snap in a 2-minute drill, turning a football over, those are things you can't do as a backup quarterback. You've got to come in and prove you can play mistake-free football in the short term. And so far we have, I think, fumbled 2 snaps in 2 weeks inside the 5, and it troubles me greatly. But we'll look at the film and see. Played a lot of backup linemen, backup receivers, and backup running backs. And when you have a backup quarterback that hasn't had all the work either, it's a very tough day at the office.
Despite the problems on offense, there were bright spots for the Raiders on defense. Rookie defensive lineman Mo Hurst recorded his first sack, and P.J. Hall continued to impress up front with his quick step and physical play. Linebackers Markel Lee and Nicholas Morrow also showed up in a big way for Oakland, combining for 9 tackles and making their presence known. Oft-injured cornerback Garyon Conley also returned in limited action and looked solid, as did veteran Sharice Wright. Wright and the Raiders secondary continued to play inspired ball, flying around the ball more than any time in recent memory. Gruden was impressed with the veteran Wright and what he brings to the Raiders secondary.
Thought he played well. He came out of the game. He tweaked his hamstring, but he played 50 plays last week against the Lions. Veteran player trying to make this team. And he can play the nickel. He can play outside. He can play on special teams. He and Frosty Rucker had a great run here in this Coliseum, and they were talking about it quite a bit.
All in all, a forgettable game for the Raiders in their return to the Los Angeles Coliseum, but there was bright spots and there was progress in certain positions for the Raiders. Speaking of Los Angeles, Coach Gruden had some words for his fans and what it meant for the Raiders to return to L.A.
It was awesome being back here. If you understand the Raiders, they've had a history here, championship history here, and there's still a lot of fans that remember those teams, and rightfully so. And we're going to do everything we can to enjoy their company for a couple more hours here. We appreciate their support, and hopefully in a couple weeks we give them a much better ball game.
All right, there you have it, folks. A recap of what was, Matt, just a boring game, a typical preseason. The reason why I don't like preseason.
I don't know if you were paying attention yesterday when we talked about the game on Adrenaline, and I called it the Vanilla Bowl. And then watching the game, both TV, the broadcast, and the radio broadcast, I heard the word vanilla thrown out 100 times. That's what it was. Gruden talks about, I hope we give them a better game in 2 weeks. Well, yeah, you're going to give them an actual game because yesterday was, let's just see how guys block them up. Let's see how guys hit the hole. Let's see how guys tackle. Let's see how they cover. He's going for 2-point conversions for no reason whatsoever.
Right.
Just to do it.
To make sure they don't go to overtime, as he said in the post-game press conference.
Yeah, it's just let's grade guys versus let's go out and win a game.
All right, well, we're going to step aside here in a few seconds, and when we come back, we'll talk more about the game. We'll talk about Chris Warren third. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced yet. We'll talk about that when we come back here on Silver and Black Today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbranson.
We're back. Raider football is the topic, as always, on Las Vegas's only All Raiders show. That's right. Here on Silver and Black Today, Scott Gulbranson and Matt Gutierrez. We're going to jump back into the game. Just a reminder as well, listen to our sister brother show, whatever you want to call it, on CBS Sports Radio. At this time slot on Saturdays, Las Vegas, Sports Adrenaline Las Vegas, you will hear all of local sports, not just the Raiders. Of course, they do talk Raiders because Matt's also part of that show. Mm-hmm. So you won't let him get away with not talking about it. And our video director today, Tony Cordasco, who, by the way, just looks stunning today. I don't know what he's doing. He's working out. He's doing
I do
something.
like the Golden Misfits shirt, though.
Yeah, he's
that.
repping. We got to turn the camera around.
I know he claims to not be a fan most of the time. I like the shirt.
All right. Well, we're also streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope if you want to watch in and see what we're doing here in the studio. Did he flash you the look?
Yeah, man.
Oh, my gosh. Well, that's the way it goes. All right. So back to the game, if you want to call it that, from yesterday, Matt. So a couple things. Let's start with kind of the beefy subject. Now, I don't take anything away from the preseason that Chris Warren III has had. He's a good back. He looks fantastic. He is the story thus far for the Raiders. My only concern is that Raider fans are jumping a little ahead of their skis. You can't crown this guy the number 2 running back yet. You can't say he's going to be some major breakout player because he hasn't played the competition yet. He hasn't played the first-string defenses where the holes close much faster. Now, he also hasn't run behind the number 1 offensive line, so you can use that argument. But my only point is I'm not saying he's not going to make the team. I'm not saying he's a good draft pick and he's going to work out. I'm just saying I think Raider fans might be getting a little too excited about him too fast.
Okay, you can use that argument. He hasn't played against the top defenses, but like you said, he hasn't run behind the top lines. Keith Smith hasn't been out there blocking
fullback.
for him.
Yep.
Also, what you can see from this kid, he has decent speed. He doesn't have the top end speed that a lot of guys have, but he has good speed. He can get out there and go.
Yeah.
He has great vision. You see him hit the hole. He's not hesitant. He knows where the hole is going to be. He hits the hole and he goes forward. He also doesn't go backwards when you hit him. This kid goes
he's tough
after
as hell.
contact, he's still gaining 1, 2, 3 yards. He's averaging 6+ yards a carry right now. I don't care who you're playing against. These are pro football players out there, and this kid's getting 6+ yards a carry.
Oh, yeah.
Also, the guy that everybody's looking at to be number 2, which I have not one time been on the bandwagon for, is Mr. 2.9 yards a carry the last couple of seasons, Doug Martin. Doug Martin.
Doug Martin. Did I call him Curtis? I did.
I'd be all right with Curtis Martin.
I'm showing my age.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know what Doug Martin has left because we've seen the last couple of seasons is very minimal from him.
Absolutely.
He hasn't been able to produce.
Yeah.
We haven't seen anything from him in the preseason. He had one. It was a 3rd and 20 draw. Would he get a yard out of it? You can't base anything off of that. But Chris Warren. So here's the thing, and I hate to keep going back to late 90s, early 2000s with John Gruden and the Raiders offense, but Chris Warren III looks like Zach Crockett to me out there. Good speed, not great. Great power, great vision. Hits the hole, goes forward, never goes backwards. That's the kind of guy that works in the John Gruden offense.
Yes, absolutely. I don't disagree with that statement at all. But he's not Zach Crockett. He has not proven himself yet. He is a little slow off the step. He just is not. He doesn't have that breakaway speed. Again, I'm not taking anything away from the preseason he's had. Now, but here's the thing. What I would say with him is we have to see, and with Doug Martin, you're absolutely right. Personal predictions aside, at the same time, we have to see where I think it spells doom for some other guys on the roster that Warren's doing. Well, I think Warren makes the roster. I got no doubt that he makes the roster. Okay, I'm just saying a lot of people are like, "Whoa, get rid of Martin, get rid of Marshawn. Eventually, he can be the heir apparent." I don't think you can call yet that he's the heir apparent. Well, we're going to listen to Anthony from California. He's on the phone. He's going to tell us what he thinks. Anthony, what's up, man? What do you got?
Hey, just a couple of things, man, from yesterday's game. I know right now you guys are talking about the running back. Me personally, I'm going back to even as soon as last year, the year before, when George Atkinson was balling in the preseason. Big dude, kind of looked our former running back, and then they cut him. They brought him back, and they cut him. He wasn't excelling or growing, I guess. That didn't happen. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. Finish.
I would just say I hope Warren doesn't end up. I think Warren has I don't know, a little bit better vision. I don't know.
Great vision.
He's not as fluent. Yeah, he's not as fluent hip-wise. From what I see, he's just a big dude.
Yeah.
I honestly think, though, that Doug Martin is going to be the odd man out, and as Washington, I think it's going to be Lynch, Warren, and Richard. I'm sorry, because the guy can catch. He's awesome. You see what he's doing in the backfield. And then probably the other final thing, I'm going to jump off topic, not topic, but a different position, is what are we doing slamming players? I mean, I know that had to be going crazy over guys doing those idiotic things. Game changers. Those are.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the penalty, the personal foul penalty on the defensive back for slamming the receiver into the ground late in the game.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, no, that stuff drives Gruden nuts. You're right, absolutely right, and he talked about it in the post-game press conference. And I agree with you, Anthony. I mean, when you're talking about Warren, I think he's going to be an NFL back. I don't have any doubt about that. I just think that Raider fans, and this has been a little bit of a pattern, I think, with Raider fans, is they get their expectations up so far, and they're ready to let this guy be the running back of the future when you've seen him in 2 preseason games. And by the way, the field in the NFL is littered with preseason heroes that never made it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you go to Atkinson.
Thanks for the call, Anthony. I appreciate it.
Had great top-end speed, but he had fumble issues as well.
Yes, he did.
And they tried to put him on special teams, and he didn't produce the way they wanted him to. And again, you keep putting the ball on the ground, that's going to be an issue. Warren hasn't shown that he's going to put the ball on the ground. And Tony handed me a note talking about Gruden yesterday, said that Warren hasn't done what is expected away from the ball, so needs to block better, maybe pick up the scheme a little better, things like that. Yeah, absolutely. But to your point, he's not going to be the number 1 guy. He may not be the number 2 or 3 guy,
right,
but he is a guy that can come in and get you those tough yards.
Absolutely.
He can be that goal line guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you already have Lynch out there, but you don't want to beat the crap out of Lynch throughout the entire season because he is 31, 32 years old.
No, yeah.
He is on the back end of his career, and you do need to spell some of his carries.
Well, and you
need to have big – you can't have Jalen Richard as the number 2 back. You just can't because he can't take the bulk of carries like that. A guy like Warren can come in and get those tough yards, and then a guy like Richard can be your change of pace back. I still think that he makes this roster. I think that he's going to be a valuable piece when it comes to that short yardage run game. He's not getting 20 carries a game. That's not what I'm saying. But Matt, I think this kid has talent.
I think we'll see with Green Bay. We're going to start to see starters play more, and we'll see what he looks like against a pretty damn good front seven, which we'll talk about later with Bill Rabeor from the Fan in Green Bay. But to me, I think he is, and Anthony, dude, you were right on. He could be George Atkinson III, or he could not be. I mean, he could end up being the real deal, and we'll have to see. It just takes some time. But nonetheless, I'm just saying, I'm not, again, I was going back and forth with some folks yesterday online, and it wasn't that I don't like him, and it wasn't that I'm not impressed with him, because I think the kid, I mean, the guys from the NFL Network were saying they were on the field, and they thought he came out of the tunnel. They thought he was a defensive lineman.
Yeah, he's 250 pounds. He's a beast.
He's a huge
beast.
kid.
But again, that's why this is a guy that can take a beating throughout the course of the season so that guys like Richard and Lynch and Washington or Martin, if they're there, don't have to.
Right.
If he can pick it up well enough, he can be very valuable. Again, goal line, short yardage.
Yeah, and guys get into weird situations in college, and Texas, wanted to make him an H-back. They wanted all kinds of things. They were moving him around. So maybe he never got the shot he deserved there. But, NFL talent evaluation is so deep and so significant on every guy that there's always guys they miss on. But if we look at this Raider roster this year, are you going to tell me they have 5 guys that the entire league missed on? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who proves those guys wrong. Hurst, I don't even count anymore. But an Arden Key, who we'll talk about a little later as well, and some of these other guys like P.J. Hall, again, who had a great game yesterday. We'll see. But I think if he does this kind of performance again against Green Bay, especially against that first unit, and he did take on some good players yesterday against the Rams. Don't get me wrong, because the Rams reserves are pretty dang good either. They're a Super Bowl contender. If he does it against Green Bay, then I will be much more of a believer.
Look, Warren is a guy that's going to look completely lost and out of place in a Chip Kelly-style offense. If you're a team that likes to spread the ball out or spread your receivers out, formations really wide, read option stuff all the time, things like that, Warren is not going to fit. He's not going to look like a good football player. But in a John Gruden system, now, John Gruden will spread you out. He'll move guys around. He'll find the mismatch. But he'll also line up in front of you and smash you in the mouth and run the ball down your throat.
Yeah.
And that's what he likes to do. That's the 98 mentality that everybody keeps talking about, is smash mouth football.
The other thing, though, too, is as well as he's done, is he real? I mean, I think he should make the roster. Are they showcasing him because they might not keep him? I'm just saying, because if you look at him, I'm looking at the numbers right now. Chris Warren has 31 attempts. The next closest guy in the entire roster is Washington with 6.
Mm-hmm.
So he's the only one running the ball. So
maybe it has to do with the fact, like I just mentioned, not picking up blocks right, maybe not seeing things the right way, being able to read the defense the right way. Maybe he's trying to get him going in that respect. I mean,
could be. Just get him in a rhythm.
Bottom line is, I think this kid can play the game in this offense. He's not going to work in everybody's offense, but in a John Gruden offense where they like to line up and beat you up front, this is the kind of guy that he loves. John Ritchie, Zach Crockett, guys like that. That he had Mike Allstott, even though Mike Allstott was established already as one of the better fullbacks of all time when he got to Tampa, still used him in that way. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Warren can come in and steal some short yardage goal line carries.
No, it'll be interesting to see how he does against Green Bay, and certainly you got to feel coming in against Green Bay too. You'll see Marshawn Lynch will get some more time, as will Doug Martin and some of the other guys too, because they just need to get some carries to evaluate. Yeah. All right, when we come back, we're going to be joined on the Michael Troiano Newsmaker line from Vinny Bonsignore from The Athletic LA will join us. Stay right where you are. Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Of the three-game series between the Dodgers and the Mariners is today at noon on CBS Sports Radio. 1140.
This is Cliff Branch, formerly of the Oakland Raiders, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 4-time Pro Bowl, and you listen to the Silver and Black Show.
All right, thank you, Cliff Branch, who should be in the Hall of Fame. It's disgusting that this Veterans Committee deal thing, again, did not put him or Tom Flores in. It's just, I mean, we could do a whole show on it, so I'm not going to say any more after that, but ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Cliff
Just
Branch.
bring in Villapiano and let him go off for a few hours about it.
We'll just give him his own show. All right, welcome back to Silver and Black Today, Las Vegas' only dedicated Raiders football show. We're going to go out now on our attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line, where we bring in the Athletic LA's Vinny Bonsignore, who covers the NFL and recently moved over to the nation's hottest online sports publication. He's going to talk a little Raiders versus Rams and some general info topics as well. Vinny, congrats on the move and the new role.
Thank you very much. It's it's an exciting time. Took a little bit of a plunge here, going from newspapers to the Athletic, but I think it's the wave of the future. I think they're on to something. I think that if you look around the country and where they've been going and the kind of talent that they've been assembling and the writers and the reporters, I think it's not expensive. We've got a deal going now for under $4 a month for a yearly subscription. I really believe in what we're doing, and it's really exciting to be a part of it at this stage of the growth, because I think it's going to be around for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's killer. That internet thing, I think it's going to last. And not only that, but I'm a subscriber, and it's the only publication, I got to be honest, outside of some really niche football publications that I pay for. It's that good, and just so happy that you're over there covering the NFL there in Los Angeles. Okay, so let's jump in to the Rams versus Raiders, and if you want to call it a game, and that was on both sides, Vinny. Now, first of all, we want to know, because Raider fans yesterday really, really were very hyperactive to report on how it was an all-Raider crowd. Tell us, you were there. We saw a lot of the tailgate stuff outside, a lot of Raider Nation gear and tents and whatnot. How was the crowd overall? I know the Rams are starting to make some real progress, and it helps that they're really good. But what was the crowd makeup yesterday?
I'm saying at least 75-25 Raider fans.
Wow.
Not a surprise. This is a game that the Raider fans and LA Raider Nation circled on the calendars as soon as this game was announced. You have to understand that there's a lot of not frustration, but lingering anger. Obviously the Raiders are going to Las Vegas. I think that's where they truly belong. That's where their future is going to soar. No question about that. But 2 years ago, in 2015, 3 years ago, I guess now, there was a real chance that the Raiders were going to return to Los Angeles. And there's a lot of people in Los Angeles, a lot of Raider fans in Los Angeles, who feel this is their home outside of, let's say Oakland. And there was a contentious fight, between the Raiders and the Rams and their fans locally on who had the right to move back to Los Angeles more. Was it the Rams? Was it the Raiders? And it got contentious, and I was right in the middle of it, and I saw the battles that they waged on social media trying to, pump out their chest. So yesterday was an opportunity for Raider fans here to show, we told you guys that we were the team to come back to Los Angeles. This is the kind of support that we would have given them on a weekly basis, and it was pretty cool to see. I personally think, and I wrote for The Athletic 2 days ago, that you know what? There's always been enough room in Los Angeles for both the Rams and Raiders. Had some decisions gone differently way back in the day, and as recently as 2015, maybe things would have changed and we would have seen that. It didn't, but rest assured, the Raiders will always have a home here in Los Angeles, and they made that very clear yesterday at the Coliseum.
Hey, Vinny, Matt here. I know if I'm a Raiders fan in L.A., if they're not coming to L.A., I have no problem with Vegas. We know how many people like to drive up to 15 for a nice weekend in Vegas, and it's closer than Oakland, so why not, right? But let's jump into the game yesterday. I named it the Vanilla Bowl going into yesterday's game because we knew what it was going to be. I mean, the way the schedule played out with these two teams opening up on Monday Night Football, you didn't even see starters dress yesterday. There's no way these two coaches were going to show the other side anything out of the playbook worth anything at all, right? So what did you get out of this game? I mean, it's more of an individual evaluation kind of game than it is an actual who who's going to win the game kind of thing. What did you take away from yesterday's affair?
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with you. And real quick, this was the Raiders and the Rams wanted to actually practice last week. But they both agreed only if the game is in the second half of the schedule. Well, lo and behold, for whatever reason, the NFL puts it as the opening. It's a great draw, a great start to the season, but considering what could have happened this week, it really threw a monkey wrench in those type of plans. So not only did we lose that, but we lost any semblance of the game yesterday in terms of strategy and X's and O's and what we may see in the regular season. But there were some. I felt some good and bad that came out of it for both sides. And we have to talk about Chris Warren, the Texas undrafted rookie running back for the Raiders. And I think that they've uncovered somebody that has a chance to be really good in this league. You look at Chris Warren and you look at the talent that he brings, the size, the speed, and the vision. We've seen it now for 2 weeks, and yesterday he was a man among backups, I guess. He's running for, 110 yards and a touchdown and showing power and vision. And everything that you want to see in a running back. And it makes you wonder now what the Raiders are going to do, with that position. Obviously, Marshawn Lynch is there. Doug Martin is there. Those are two veterans, and John Gruden loves his veterans. But this is a kid that looks like a veteran right now. And it'll be interesting to see in these next few weeks and into the regular season what their plans are for this young running back.
Now, Vinny, also, too, on the defensive side of the ball for the Raiders, we saw, again, a really strong showing up front in the middle, which has been a problem for this team over the years with Mo Hurst and PJ. I mean, PJ Hall, everybody knew Mo Hurst because of the perceived heart issue fell way too low. He could have been maybe a first, second-round pick. But then you have P.J. Hall in there, who, again, yesterday didn't put up a lot of numbers, but you see this kid and how tough he is and what he's doing in the middle. What did you see from that young middle and actually the whole defensive line, including Arden Key yesterday for the Raiders, that made you think that maybe these kids are going to make some noise this year?
Yeah, and if you go back to the draft, this was a classic Raiders draft. Huge defensive linemen. A lot of offensive line, a couple of really significant offensive linemen as well. It was how the Raiders are typically built, and that's girth and power up front. And you saw that yesterday, and you've seen it already in the preseason with these youngsters. And I think that obviously the Rams were playing without their starting offensive line, and we didn't see Todd Gurley, and that makes a huge difference. But you can see just in terms of whether it's just even in a rotation to start off as rookies, that these kids have a future in this league. And I think that the Raiders, they threw a curveball a little bit in the draft, and I think that a lot of people were scratching their head. But there was, to me, prudence and an intelligence in what they do. You have to have offensive and defensive lines. That's where it all starts. I know that's a cliche, but it's the truth of the matter. You talk to any football coach, that's where it starts. And I think that the Raiders have a bit of a foundation that they created this year in the draft, and you saw that. And another guy that I liked was Markel Lee, their second-year linebacker from Wake Forest, who's been making plays in 2 preseason games now. I know that he struggled a little bit as a rookie. That happens. But it's a new system, relatively new system, new coaching staff, obviously. And he played very well yesterday. A sack, a quarterback hit, a couple of pressures, 6 tackles to lead the Raiders. So I think that yes, the Raiders struggled defensively last year, obviously, but it looks like they're at least addressing it this year in the draft. And some guys that were struggle maybe as rookies last year or younger players. If they get better, there's a chance for this defense to get turned around sooner rather than later.
Vinny Bonsignore joining us from the Athletic LA. Now, Vinny, one of the things that I just loved yesterday was the fact that whenever the Rams threw the ball, Raiders were there. You actually saw defensive backs staying with receivers, getting their hands on the ball, knocking passes away, just being around the ball, which is something we didn't see at all last season.
Yeah, again, and it goes back to a young defense and these were backups for the Raiders as well, which bodes well because you need, it's a battle of attrition in the NFL, and especially in the defensive backfield where you're going to have to play a lot of guys because that's just the nature of football these days. You're playing in packages with 5, sometimes 6 defensive backs. as many guys that you can have on a roster that can cover, and they did that really well yesterday. Again, context. The Rams were without their starting wide receivers. We get it. We understand that. But these are still NFL players for the most part that they're playing against, and they did a really good job of that. Plus, there was pressure being put on from inside. So when you have, that combination working, it bodes well for what you're trying to do. And we all know, again, that the Raiders have got to get better on defense. If they do, then that changes the whole complexion of this season, because that was their biggest problem last year, was stopping people. If they can they're not going to be a top 5 defense. They're probably not going to be a top 10 or even 15 defense. But if they could be an opportunistic defense and give their offense a chance, because this offense to me has a chance to be very explosive, then all of a sudden you're talking about a team that we were worried about, but now can see some hope that, hey, and in a division where there's nobody. I like the Chargers, but there's a wild card opportunity.
As long as they stay healthy.
Yes, exactly. The Chargers look good, by the way. You can see now that the Raiders, if that defense can get squared away, that they're going to be in a much better position than maybe we would have thought to start the year.
Yeah, opportunistic. I like that word, because if you go back to a team like the Saints when they won the Super Bowl that year, that's a team that offensively was so dynamic. Defensively, they led the league in turnovers that season. It's not that they had the best defense in the NFL as far as yardage and points and things like that, but they got the ball back when they needed to get the ball back, and they scored a lot off of those turnovers. And, I mean, that makes a huge difference, Scott.
It does. And, Vinny, we're going to hold you over, man. We'll come back. We'll finish up the discussion on the game yesterday. Vinny also is tied in with everything NFL, so we'll talk about Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack. We'll talk about AFC West and the NFL's new ridiculous rules and how they're changing the game. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Help us talk the silver and black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Matt Gutierrez and your host, Scott Gulbranson, on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 AM.
We're back, and we're joined on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line by Vinny Bonsignore of The Athletic Los Angeles, and we're talking Raiders, Rams, and everything NFL. So, Vinny, let's touch on one last subject from the game yesterday from the Raiders' perspective before we move on to some more NFL-related material, and that is the poor play by the Raiders quarterbacks. Now, of course, during the preseason, the backup quarterbacks are always a lot of interest to fans because they're playing, number one, and you get to see them. And a lot of times, like Connor Cook last week, looked fantastic, and then has a bad week of practice, comes out, looks good. What'd you see from these quarterbacks? And it's a race for that number 2 spot behind Derek Carr. What did you see, if anything, that gives any one of those guys an edge for Oakland?
Well, have to put some perspective on it. The offensive game plan was non-existent.
Yep.
So let's give them a little bit of benefit of the doubt on that. But generally speaking, not much at all. And it's a big worry to me. And the Rams are in the same position. Sean Mannion looked awful again yesterday. I know he looked a little bit better than he did against the Ravens, but not enough to give you confidence that, hey, if something were to happen to Jared Goff, the Rams would be in good hands. Far from it. Cooks and Manuel, to me, yeah, their numbers didn't look so bad. It was funny, as I'm watching the game, I'm thinking to myself, these guys are awful. I'd be worried if I was the Raiders right now. And I looked at their stats, and it didn't look that bad compared to what the actual play looked like. But it was bad, and I don't think that either guy right now can elicits much confidence, and that's a problem because all you have to do is go back to 2016, and the Raiders were flying high, and people were talking about them as making a nice little playoff run, and then all of a sudden Derek Carr goes down, and the wheels completely come off. You have to have, I don't care what anybody says, it's going to bite you on the you-know-what when you are weak at a certain position. It's like a magnet. It's going to somehow, some way, your weakness is somehow, some way going to be exposed, even if it's, your backup quarterback, and even if it's in a small sample size that, look what happened to the Raiders. Their season came to a grinding halt, basically, when Carr went down, or even if it's in the middle of the season and you need your backup quarterback to start a couple of games, and they don't get those, they don't play well enough to put you in a position to win, and maybe that's the win or the game that costs you a playoff spot. So you can't just say, it's our backup quarterback. It's not that big of a deal. It is a big deal, and I don't see in either one that the Raiders are in good position if something were to happen again to Derek Carr. Now, it's late in the game. What do you do? Who's out there that could potentially come in on late notice and be an impact player in case you need him? You look at the Jets, what's going to happen with Teddy Bridgewater. That's one guy that I would keep in mind for a lot of teams, the Rams included. But I'm sorry, I just didn't see enough from either guy yesterday. And in EJ's case, I know the stats didn't look too bad, but he was bad. And he's just not an NFL caliber quarterback to me. A lot of his passes where I saw guys that were open, that he just missed, and he would dump it down to somebody, safely. And even on those type of throws, he didn't look good or look comfortable or look confident doing it. So I'd be worried if I was a Raider fan about the backup quarterback.
Yeah, it's not even the offense that you have to worry about with yesterday's game because it was so vanilla. Like you mentioned, not being able to go through your progressions. A lot of throws that were behind crossing receivers, overthrows on post routes or seam routes, just not crisp. And then the fumble situation 2 weeks in a row with the quarterbacks. Those are things that need to change in a hurry. But let's move on to, Scott touched on it beforehand, this helmet rule and this I don't even, how do you phrase it? We don't want to have any sort of perceived violence. He talked about the play off air he was mentioning in the Vikings game where the quarterback is sacked. Scott, I'm going to let you read this quote because I don't. Go ahead. Read the quote first.
Well, Vinny, so here's the thing. I'm sure because you have your pulse, the pulse of the NFL, you saw what happened with the Vikings and Jags yesterday and the sack. Now, in essence, the guy sacked him. He did not drive him in the turf. It wasn't an Aaron Rodgers. It wasn't a Tom Brady injury situation where the guy really, put an extra oomph into him to drive him into the ground. He tackled him, typical sack that you would see, I think, in any football game anytime. And they asked referee Pat Morelli from the NFL to explain how defensive players need to avoid, quote-unquote, plopping down on quarterbacks when making sacks. And this is what Pete Morelli said, and I find it beyond idiotic, and I just want to get your take on it. He said, quote, players will have to kind of roll to the side when they make the tackle instead of plopping down on him, i.e. the quarterback. I don't get it.
Honestly, real quick, I want to see NFL officials, referees, guys making these rules.
Give examples.
Hook up with remember Brinkus, the sports science studio? Get in there with him, and I want them going full speed. Demonstrate to me how you can defy the laws of physics and, float, go Neo on it and pull a matrix move? Explain to me how these things can be done at full speed in an NFL game.
It's ridiculous, and I did see that play. I happened to be watching it live. They were showing it up in the press box at that point, and we were all howling. It was like, what do you want this guy to do? I get it. The quarterback was starting to go into the little fetal position or cover-up position, but we're talking about something that's happening in real time, and I know that fans might not like to hear this, but I'm suggesting that on these calls and on the new helmet roll call, there needs to be an automatic replay on these because you're asking humans to make calls that are almost impossible to make. You're judge and jury as a referee with guys flying around a football field trying to make a tackle, and in a lot of cases now, trying to make safe tackles. That's the thing that's bugging me the most. Yesterday in the Rams game, there was a situation where the player literally turned his head to, I think it was the left, to make it as obvious as possible. I'm coming in with my shoulder, not my head, and he still got called for the leading with the helmet penalty. And it's the second week in a row that this has happened to the Rams, that I've seen live. And what you might think you're seeing as you're out there on the field running around watching it and paying attention to a whole bunch of different things, not just that, is not what is really happening. And I think the NFL, if they want to make this right for the players, if they want to make this right for the referees, who are in an impossible situation right now, in a position right now, and if you want to make this right for your game in general, at least allow a replay official to be able to look at it and say, no, you know what? He was trying to do the right thing. Circumstance got in the way, and just the speed of the game, whatever you want to call it.
I don't think they know what they're looking for.
No,
honestly, I don't think they know what to look for at this point.
And Vinny, we have about 35 seconds left, but knowing the NFL as well as
started. Sorry.
No, that's okay. No, it's good. Man. It's good. And knowing the league as well as you do, what's the chances that they actually do something about this rather quickly to either do what you recommend, which you said yesterday, which was give these guys opportunities to do reviews, or they somehow change the rule or clarify it more to give more latitude for the referees?
I don't see them changing it much. That the NFL just doesn't operate that quickly. But maybe they'll pull the referees aside and said, "Okay, we made our point in the preseason. Let's pull it back a little bit." I think we have to keep in mind that they sometimes do that. They'll sometimes oversaturate it in the preseason to get it on everybody's radar and everybody's mind. But again, what really bugs me is that players are trying to do the right thing, and they're still getting called. And I've talked to players and I've talked to coaches, and they are livid with that. It's beyond frustrating.
All right. Vinny Bonsignore, read him and go subscribe to The Athletic LA. Vinny will be a frequent guest here on the show. Vinny, thanks, man. I appreciate you giving some of your Sunday.
All right, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you. Vinny Bonsignore, The Athletic LA. We'll be back here after the top of the hour sports update on Silver and Black Today, CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbranson and Matt Gutierrez.
Welcome back. I am caffeinated. Matt, you're caffeinated.
I'm aggravated now, man. We've been sitting here talking about this ridiculous rule for 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was a great segment with Vinny Bonsignore from the Athletic LA, and we were talking about the Vikings tackle.
Dude.
I mean, I just don't understand
I don't get it.
What the NFL is trying to do. I get it. They want to protect the face of the league and Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, blah, blah, blah. But guess what? When you go to tackle a human being and wrap them up, this referee Morelli saying that you have to roll off him before you hit the ground?
In mid-flight.
Yeah, and you bring up the Matrix, right? That's I mean, how are you going to float?
Well, like I said, this is the
Crouching
problem.
Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
You said, here's the thing, the NFL doesn't understand what they want out of this rule. They're just making it up as they go. They're watching too many games on replay with DVR, and they feel that that's now real life, where in the middle of a play, you just pause it,
right,
and then you can move little pieces around like you're in some crazy video game. It doesn't work that way, man. You cannot, again, calling John Brinkus, sports science. I want to see it. Throw him in that studio.
I think we get him on the air next week.
Give me some officials, and I want to see you prove to me that in mid-flight going full speed, you can suspend reality and roll off of somebody.
Matt, you got to book him this week. Now, I'm sure there's people out there listening in the market who will try to take the interview before we get it. But anyway, but just grab it. We will do that. And again, we're back here talking Raiders football in the game yesterday against the Rams, and we're talking NFL general with Vinny as well. But we want you to be part of the show. What did you think? We just got finished talking about how bad the Raiders quarterbacks were yesterday, be it as though they were back up playing, vanilla offense. We want to hear what you have to say. 702-889-5977 7-Up.
7-Up.
Whoa.
New sponsor.
7 and 7. Anyway,
please.
897.
Little day drinking.
8978. So call 889-5978. There we go. Call in and tell us what you thought of the Raiders yesterday. Also, I got to remind you, because we had a listener who's up in Alaska, Ed, our good friend, who said, hey, I'm trying to listen on TuneIn. I can't. We're no longer on TuneIn. Intercom stations are not there. They are on the radio.com app, which is actually better. It's really killer. Any sports station that you want in the country, any of the big ones like WFAN in New York, all the other stuff you can find there as well. So go ahead and try us and stream us on radio.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube right now as well, where there's active discussion going on there. But the other thing I want to talk about yesterday was some of the backup offensive line play, Matt. One of the guys that I liked, and maybe it's because I got to interview him early after he was drafted, and he's a good kid, was Brandon Parker. A lot of Raider fans taking out some I think, frustration and anger on Brandon Parker. And I think what people forget, and he did not look great yesterday, no doubt about it. He hasn't practiced. He's been injured. So when a guy hasn't been practicing and then you throw him out there in live game action and he doesn't look good, you can't write him off. I mean, even our good friend, and I respect the hell out of Austin Gale at PFF, said, oh, he might look like he was overdrafted. Well, I don't think you can do that after one game.
He was at left tackle.
Yeah.
That surprised me.
It was.
That's the thing that surprised me, because does that mean that they have just completely given up on Donald Penn ever going back to the left side? And now you're looking at Colton Miller being your starting left tackle and Brandon Parker being that backup, or maybe a guy that can move around the line a little bit, but he's going to be the number 2 there. That was what surprised me. I would have assumed that he had been working on the right side, because if something does happen to Colton Miller, or he doesn't work out the way you had hoped, then you could naturally just slide Penn back into that left tackle spot and insert Parker into the right spot. But that's not what they did. I was surprised to see that.
I was surprised. At the same time, it's preseason. You kind of throw guys in there, especially a rookie, to see where he goes. Now, that's a tough assignment when you have been preparing for, and when he has practiced, he's been at the right side. Right. And frankly, the odds-on favorite to be the starter on the right side so far, or at least a part-time starter. So to me, guys like that, it's interesting to see what happens. But I think people just being a little too hard on Brandon Parker, but we'll see what else is going on. Now, we talked earlier, too, Matt, about Markel Lee and Nicholas Mara. Boy, man, they look good. They are really fighting for that spot.
Linebackers making plays, something we haven't seen a whole lot of in the last couple of years. You can go through the defense position by position and talk about the lack of playmaking ability over the last, 3 or 4 seasons, with the exception of defensive end position because they've been pretty solid there. But, you're starting to see, and I know a lot of it has to do with upgraded talent in these positions, but you're seeing this system that Paul Guenther has inserted starting to pay dividends already in preseason. And it's not because they're playing lesser talent and this and that. It's not just about that. You're seeing guys fly to the ball, seeing guys being more aggressive. You're seeing them, for the most part, understand where they need to be on the field. That's as much of it as anything. You could be the most talented guy in the world. If you don't know where to be, you're going to get beat every single time.
Right.
That doesn't matter how fast you can run, how hard you can hit.
You don't necessarily teach toughness, but the veracity by which this team is rolling around on the defensive side of the ball is earth-shattering for this team, because you did not see anything close to this.
Very reactionary defense last year.
Very reactionary, but not only that, you talk about guys being around the ball. That comes with focus and hustle. That comes with being in the right spot, knowing the system. Now, you bring in a new system, you got players, vets there, who are getting up to speed on it, and you got rookies there learning it for the first time, and boy, they're taken to it quick.
No surprise as to why they brought in the guys that they brought in. They brought in people that have played and understand Paul Guenther's system. They did that for a reason, because that, again, coaches on the field, right? It's one thing to stand on the sideline and get direction from the coach. It's another thing to be out on the field and have a guy say, you need to slide, you need to take this guy, this is your area, we need to move right now. They check to this, we got to go over here. It's a completely different thing. And when you have veterans out there that understand the position as well as these guys do, that's going to make everybody around them better.
Well, and the other thing, I'm surprised. I was excited about, and I thought it was a good veteran acquisition, because I do think he's got some left in the tank. And Chris Reed on our silverandblacktoday.com staff wrote a piece on it when he was signed, and that's Derek Johnson. Derek Johnson's not there. I don't know. I don't know if he makes the roster at this point. If these guys continue to play like they're playing,
I think you still need him. He's a veteran guy. He's great in pass coverage, and I think locker room leadership. I think he's a guy that you brought him in for a reason, and it's more than just his ability on the field. There are a lot of intangibles there that go with it, and it's not like he hasn't played well as recently as last season.
No, he played great last season.
So I think he still has plenty, and you don't want to get rid of a guy like that, because in preseason, guys are finally starting to flash and play well. These are guys that are still unproven, haven't done it yet in the regular season. You can't get rid of You can't get rid of a guy as important and as seasoned as Derek Johnson already. I mean, now if you're halfway through the season, he's done nothing. All these other guys are
here's the thing,
flashing, then fine. But
Matt, here's the thing: for the first time, I think in several years, the Raiders are going to have to make really tough decisions on the roster, and that's offense and defense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you look at yesterday. I think a guy who secured a roster spot already, I believe, just by, and I know, again, it's 2 games, and I just made the opposite argument with Chris Warren, is Nick Nelson. I think Nick Nelson, again, showed yesterday, even when he was beat and he didn't get to the ball, he didn't see the ball on that one pass, he's a guy who he plays great man-to-man coverage, and he's always there. And I think this is a kid, this could be, and I said it yesterday on Twitter, I think this is a kid that at the end of the day could end up being, you talk about steals of the draft, he could be one of them.
Well, that was his thing in college. He's always around the ball. He didn't give up the big plays. He didn't give up very many catches in general. Because he's always around the ball. And that play yesterday you're talking about, that seam route down the sideline, he was there to make the play. That's the kind of play, unfortunately, we've seen guys over the past with the Raiders. They're there to make the play sometimes, and they don't get their head around. They never really turn to look for the ball. Stanford Routt was notorious for that. He was all over guys, glued to guys, and he never turned around and looked for the ball. Nelson turned around late, didn't locate it properly, couldn't get his hands in the right position, but he was there, which is what you want to see. And you know that this is a kid that can locate the ball. He did it all throughout college. He'll be able to make that adjustment next time he's out on the field. I guarantee you he watches that play 1,000 times between yesterday and next week's game against the Packers and knows exactly where he needs to be and what he needs to do to change that type of situation. This kid's going to be good. I'd really like to see him in the nickel early on, because you've got so many shifty guys, quick guys that come out of that position that are so elusive, they're hard to stay with. You need a guy like this who can glue himself to somebody like that.
Yeah, and I think the other promising sign yesterday in the defensive backfield, of course, actually they all played well. But to see Garyon Conley out there
Just
finally.
to see him out there, yeah.
Just
right?
to see him out there. And you know what? He looked good.
Yeah.
He's got to get up to game speed. But in the limited action that he did see, and I think it was enough at that point, he looked really good. So that's a really encouraging to have him and Nelson. Then you saw, of course, Sharice Wright, which John Gruden talked about in his post-game press conference, and then Rashawn Melvin, who you'll see coming up against the Packers too. You know, this unit looks good, man.
They're
I'm
upgraded.
excited about it.
They
Yeah,
are
they're upgraded.
definitely upgraded. And you know, I remember in the offseason early on when, you know, going into the draft is like we got to go defensive back. This position is so decimated with the Raiders, and they lost Amerson and they lost Smith, and what are they going to do here? And then you started seeing these names come in. You go, what are they doing?
Yeah.
You know, these aren't guys that are going to produce. And now you're starting to see, man, they've got some talent back there.
Yeah.
Scheme, aggressiveness, being around the ball. You got the kids in Nelson and Connolly. There's a reason they were drafted where they were drafted.
Yes, and don't let. I'm not going on a limb here and saying, oh boy, they're going to be the top defensive backfield in the league.
No,
they're
but
not.
they can play.
But they upgraded, and you know what? This year is a transition year for the Raiders. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's about progress.
It's
and
year
we're
one
seeing,
with a new staff.
Exactly, and with new talent.
70% roster turnover.
Exactly, and so it's actually exciting though, because if the Raiders can field a defense that's middle of the pack with a top 10 offense, you know, you should be a playoff.
Yeah.
So you got to like that. But we're
10-6, baby. 10-6.
There he goes.
Calling
10-6. There it is. All right. When we come back, we're going to go back out on the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line all the way to Green Bay, where Bill Rabeor from WDUZ, The Fan, will join us to talk about the Packers as the Raiders get set for them on Friday night. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Hi, this is Steve Wisniewski, and you're listening to the Silver and Black Today.
Stevie. All right. See, he's blocking up front for us.
Man, he was a
like
beast,
that.
wasn't he?
Oh, he was a beast. All right. We are back here on Silver and Black Today, CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. I am Scott Gilbranson. The man next to me is Matt Gutierrez. We are your friendly hosts, usually friendly, unless somebody in the studio makes us grumpy.
Yeah, not in break, it seems like lately.
I don't know what's going on, but we'll figure it out. Now, we are going to fire up the attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line, and we're going all the way to Green Bay. Hey, that rhymed. God. I'm a poet and didn't know it.
Easy, Dr. Seuss.
All right, easy. We welcome in Bill Rabeor from WDUZ, the Fan in Green Bay, to talk Packers Raiders. Bill, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Good, man. The snow's coming. The snow's coming, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to remind us. We know.
I know, but you guys love it. I love people from Wisconsin, nicest folks ever. Not like those folks in Minnesota, but that's just the whole rivalry thing. But anyway.
I like that.
We are going to talk Packers Raiders. Now, the Raiders did not have a great performance against the Rams. They're going to be facing some of the Packers' first team here, a little more of them than usual as we get to the third game in the preseason, Bill. First question I have, obviously, with the Packers and knowing how they roll, is Aaron Rodgers. How is his health? How has he looked in camp thus far leading up to the preseason?
Well, his health is fine, and he's looked great. He played the other night, played only one series, and it resulted in a touchdown. So everything seems to be A-OK with Aaron right now. He's looked tremendous in practice, and he looks like the Aaron Rodgers of old, which is, of course, great news for all Packer fans. And it doesn't show really any ill effects from the broken collarbone a year ago.
Yep. Now, Bill, I want to talk about his, I guess, favorite weapon over the last several seasons. Jordy Nelson, now a Raider. These two teams will meet this week coming up. How much is Jordy Nelson going to be missed? And not just from an on-the-field perspective, 65 touchdowns from Rodgers, but as a locker room guy. You've been around the team. You've seen him in there. What kind of characters does this guy bring, and how much are they going to miss him in Green Bay?
Well, I think they're going to miss him a lot, both on the field and off the field. As you mentioned, he's a terrific guy, great in the locker room. He was great with the media, terrific teammate, and really, I don't think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone that had anything negative really to say about Jordy Nelson from the media group or the fans here in Green Bay. They loved him, and I think we're still, to a degree, kind of still scratching our heads over why he's not here anymore, but I'm sure there are a lot of reasons. He got off to such a great start last year, and then when Aaron got hurt, his numbers just tanked, and it's hard to figure out why he wasn't hurt, at least nothing really major. Everybody gets dinged up, but he just did not produce with the quarterback, Brett Hundley, when he came in. So that was probably part of it. The money certainly comes into play at some point, maybe more than we know. It came down to a decision, I think, between him and Randall Cobb, who's in the final year of his contract. Jordy making a little bit more money. It's kind of a wash, though, when you look at the salary. So
yeah,
still kind of trying to figure out why he's not here. But I think they will miss him, and I think he's definitely left a void that has really yet to be filled, because obviously Devontae Adams is now the number one receiver, and he's looked great in camp. I don't think anybody's really worried about him. He's going to put up big numbers, I think, this year. Randall Cobb obviously has the experience. His numbers, everybody's numbers suffered really when Aaron went down, but Cobb needs to, put up some big numbers. The question now is, who is that third receiver? And there are a number of candidates, and we're seeing over the first couple of weeks of the preseason and the 4 weeks of training camp that there are a number of guys vying for that spot.
How much of the Jordy situation do you put into his age? Because in the NFL, maybe more so than any other sport out there, age is such a quote-unquote four-letter word, and once they get to whatever particular number you want to put on a position, teams just run in the other direction. Do you think that was a factor in him not being there?
I do to some degree. Yeah, I think long term, obviously, that probably played a part in the decision. You know, fans want to think about this year and this year only. General managers have to think about 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And so that probably was a factor. But, you know, after his knee injury a couple seasons ago, he came back pretty strong and didn't really it didn't look like he was slowing down at all. But again, the question about the numbers, they just tanked when Aaron went down, and that was kind of curious.
Yeah, it was interesting. Again, we're talking to Bill Rabeor from WDUZ, The Fan in Green Bay, about the Packers as they gear up to travel to Oakland for preseason week number 3. Now, Bill, they added Jimmy Graham, which is a big weapon for the Packers to hopefully replace some of the production that they had in previous years from Jordy Nelson. How has he looked thus far in this offense, and how have him and Rodgers kind of meshed together so far?
Well, in the one series that Aaron played on Thursday night, it ended in a Rodgers to Graham touchdown, which pretty much was indefensible. I mean, he's bigger than I think any of us really thought. I mean, he comes in at 6'7",
big kid,
and he is a big target. And Aaron just kind of threw it up there in the end zone, and he went over the defender and got it. And I don't know how you defend that, really. And what Graham has brought to this group of tight ends, is size and speed, and obviously a lot of experience that they haven't had around here in a long time. So I think so far they've meshed very well. Mike McCarthy just said yesterday that, you know, Jimmy Graham has fit in very nicely here, and so he, with the addition of Mercedes Lewis as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
They went from a group that wasn't very strong to a very strong group and big. I mean, Lewis is 6'7" too, so I mean they're big. And
they're big tight end. That's right. And now let's switch real quick to the defensive side and that front seven. Now the Packers bring in Mike Pettine as defense coordinator after Dom Capers is let go. They go out and they sign Muhammad Wilkerson to kind of a prove-it deal. Here's a guy with the Jets who has all the talent in the world but just didn't seem to have some motivation. How's he been in camp and working inside that Packers defensive system?
Well, so far he hasn't really stood out, I'd say. He's done a decent job, I guess. We haven't seen, I don't think, the real depth of this new defense. You know, they don't do a whole lot in the preseason as far as scheme goes. I think they brought Wilkerson in not only to be a run stopper, but also to be a pass rusher from the interior of that defensive line, along with Kenny Clark and Mike Daniels. They want to get some more push up the middle, and they're hoping that he can provide that. So far, that really hasn't materialized. They haven't had much pass rush in the first couple preseason games. So that, you know, maybe that scheme, we'll see. But Muhammad Wilkerson certainly had his best years with Mike Patton in New York, so they're hoping that with the one-year kind of prove-it deal, like you said, that he'll at least get back to a semblance of those numbers, because the last couple of years he was clearly not happy with the Jets, and they're hoping that the change of scenery and maybe the potential to win some ball games and maybe go further in the playoffs is going to motivate him more.
Yeah, adding Mike Daniels and Kenny Clark too should help up there. I mean, that looks like a pretty solid unit.
Now, Bill, let me ask you one of Rodgers' former targets, James Jones, played one season with the Raiders. It was Derek Carr's rookie season, and Jones was quick to compare Carr even back then to Aaron Rodgers. He said his skill set, his approach to the game, a lot like Aaron Rodgers. How much of Carr have you seen, and is that a fair comparison? Because Rodgers is at the top of the list when you're talking about best quarterbacks in the NFL over the last decade plus. Have you seen enough of Carr to think, man, this kid can succeed and he can get to that level?
I haven't, to be honest with you. I haven't seen enough of them to make that assessment. But I will say this about Aaron Rodgers: you got to be careful when you're comparing guys to him.
That's true.
He has a unique skill set. I mean, he, to me. And people want to talk about his arm strength, and he does have a very strong arm. But to me, his best asset is his feet. I mean, his footwork is so good at avoiding the pass rush, rolling either right or left. And then you add on his accuracy on the run, which is better than anybody I've ever seen. He hits guys on the run. It's amazing sometimes the throws he makes. So, you know, it's hard to compare anybody to him. But from what I've seen of Carr, I really like him, and I think he's, you know, looks like he's the guy. If the Raiders are gonna take that next step, it would be with him.
Now, Bill, the other thing that's been rolling around the NFL media especially has been the Packers' interest in Khalil Mack. What are you hearing out in Green Bay? We tend to believe that there's not going to be any kind of trade at all, but what are you hearing on the Khalil Mack front and the possible addition to the Packers via trade?
Well, so far the Packers have been mum on any type of deal, which is to be expected. They hardly ever talk about that kind of thing. Now, from a fan perspective, they're all for it. I mean, who would want Khalil Mack?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'd be willing to give up 2 first-round draft picks to get him. I mean, that dude is unbelievable. So, you know, why not? Everybody would be on board with that. I just can't imagine the Raiders trading a guy with that ability.
No chance.
Well, Bill, I want to thank you for joining us and look forward to talking to you again in the future, perhaps. And also, I'm a big Notre Dame football fan. I love that DeShone Kizer's there and has a mentor, that he doesn't have to be thrown into the Wolves' den with the Browns and actually can try to develop. He's looked good so far, hasn't he?
Well, the real battle here in camp is for that backup quarterback position between Brett Hundley and DeShone Kizer. I mean, that's really something to watch, and you guys will see that on Friday night because I don't know how much Aaron's going to play.
That's right.
So the battle will be between those two guys. And so far, I would have to call it a dead heat because they both played pretty well. Hundley has 1 interception. It really kind of wasn't his fault. He was kind of hit as he was throwing it and then kind of threw it up for grabs. But both guys have played pretty well. And that's something they're watching.
We'll see how it works out. Bill Rabeor from WDUZ, The Fan in Green Bay, thanks. We appreciate the time today. We're going to step aside. When we come back, we'll continue Raiders Talk with Matt Gutierrez's new segment called The Audible. We'll be back. CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
CBS.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas. And listen to us anytime, anywhere.
All right, we are back. Silver and Black today here on a beautiful Sunday in Las Vegas, Nevada, where it will hit 109. Hopefully the last time we get up that high. We have a brand new...
tomorrow.
That's right, till tomorrow. That's what we're done with 110 days until tomorrow. We are now going to enter a new segment, Matt's segment here, that he's going to pick a subject every week, and we're going to roll with it. We want to get your opinion. 702-889-5978 is the number. So Matt will lay it out there, and then we want you to call in. Agree, disagree, whatever you want to do. But go ahead, Matt. Take it away, brother.
Yeah, so we're going to get into this whole anthem situation. The only reason I want to do this is because it's become such a hot talking point over the last week or two with ESPN not showing the anthem on TV and people reacting to that. And this is not politically based whatsoever. I don't really care what your political affiliation is, right, left, red, blue. None of that matters. My whole thing is why do people have such an issue with what's going on within these protests? Because I think there's this misnomer out there that guys are protesting the flag, they're protesting the anthem, they're protesting the country, they're spitting in the face of veterans, things of that nature, when we know that that's not the case, right? That this isn't that type of thing. They're not out there taking a knee because they hate the red, white, and blue and they can't stand the sound of the anthem and they want nothing to do with it. This is about a completely separate issue. It's based on the social injustices versus a particular faction of the community. That's the message that they're trying to get out there. My problem is the vitriol that comes with it, because people want to attack these individuals. They want to attack their character. They want to talk about the forum with which they're using. And I don't know that a lot of these attacks are necessarily fair. You know, the First Amendment comes up a lot, and I know that people don't ever understand the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, and blah, blah, blah. That's based on the government's ability to more or less punish you for saying whatever it is you want to say. That's what that's based on. It's not about being within a certain company and them saying you can't do this. Now, the NFL has come out with all of these different rule changes about the anthem, being on the field, having to stand, all of that. The problem is, will the punishment fit the crime, and will there actually be a punishment? I have no problem if the NFL comes out and says, okay, listen, here's how it's going to work. The teams are going to punish individuals with game suspensions, with game checks, whatever the case is, because here is the rule that we have set in place. The rule is, look at the uniform rule and how trivial that rule is. If your towel is too wide, the towel hanging off of your pants, if it's too wide, you will get fined. If your socks are not the right height, you will get fined. You can't have a different color anywhere on your uniform than what's approved by the league. You'll get fined for that kind of stuff. That's a very trivial thing, if you ask me. Why can't you just do the same thing when it comes to the anthem and just basically force guys' hand?
And I think all your questions and your kind of view there and kind of how you look at it are all valid. And I said from the beginning, Colin Kaepernick, I didn't have any problem with him doing what he did. I don't agree with it. I would not do it. And I think he's a below average quarterback. That was before that. Okay, so if you want to separate the whole collusion lawsuit he has going and all that stuff. Now, when we get into the issue, here is my only problem with it. My problem is not that these guys want to raise awareness of social injustice, police brutality, whatever the issue may be, because first of all, I'm a big believer, First Amendment rights, the ability for people to speak out, even though I think in today's society, depending what side you're on, you get punished. Actually, all sides you get punished now. So to me, and I said this to you the other day, Matt, when we were talking about this, just in general, is where I think it falls flat for people is you have a polarized situation where 50% of the country thinks one way, 50% thinks the other way. Nobody wants to meet in the middle. So guess what? If you protest, you're anti-American. If you don't protest, then you're part of the problem. So there's no in-between or there's no desire to discuss. I also don't know what they're protesting exactly. I know in general, but I don't know what the ask is. And if I'm just a normal fan sitting on their couch at home, I don't want to see politics per se, But if you are going to do that and you want to raise awareness, I think there has to be a better job done by the players to communicate what it is they want me to know so that I can get on board with them or I can disagree with them, depending on how it goes.
And those in the know up there, you know, the top guys within the Players Union and the NFL need to sit down and figure it out. But I think what they're doing right now, because like you said, there's no specific message being sent. I think more than anything, it's about keeping the conversation going, which is what's happening. My problem is that.
But is there a real conversation? It's just it's
still,
it's just bickering back and forth.
But it's still there. It's still out there. It hasn't gone away. It's still an issue. It's still being discussed, which means you still have the potential to further this into something positive. But my biggest issue with people that want to complain about it is you don't really care. They want to pretend like they care, but people don't care because
I would argue, and I told you this the other day,
a single player on the sideline until they were told to watch.
But Matt, so when you say they don't care about the issues?
They don't. Well, no, they don't really. Do you really think that any of them care that a player's kneeling until they were told that they needed to care? They've never watched a single player on a single sideline ever in the history of national anthems until somebody went, "Hey, look, that guy's sitting down. Why is he sitting down?" Now, the problem with what Kaepernick did is he made it personal. He wore the pig socks, things like that.
T-shirt,
right? Yeah. He made it personal. Right. Instead of just going, look, this is why I'm doing this, and we need to further this discussion, and let's be civil about it and discuss it. Right. He made it personal, which that's where the vitriol comes from.
But I do think, I agree with you, there is a bit of groupthink going on that tends to happen a lot today with the kind of the segmented media we have and all that stuff. But at the same time, I also believe that there are people who do take it personal. I'm not necessarily one of them because I had a friend, I think it maybe been you or someone else too, or both of you, who said, hey, when you're at home and the national anthem comes on, do you just get up off your couch?
Yeah, I've said that several times.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Number two, though, is I have friends who served in the military, served in the war, and for them it's very personal. Like, they take it personal. I'm not in their shoes, so I can't understand it because I never was on the front lines with a guy and saw somebody lose a friend or a loved one, whatever it may be. So
I understand
I get that's
point,
personal.
But again, that's not what's being protested. They are not protesting the anthem. They are protesting during the anthem. That is a very different thing. Mm-hmm. The reason they're protesting when they are is because of the platform. Because if the media points it out the way that they did, then it's going to be noticed by everybody. If you go protest on the sidewalk, nobody's going to care. They're not going to pay attention. They're not protesting the anthem. They're protesting during the anthem. That is a very different thing.
Well, and and I don't disagree. My issue becomes this. My issue becomes when and where do you protest and how do you call attention to the issues that are important to you, which is fine. So that's open for interpretation. It's a good discussion to have because we're having it right now. I wish they would have this more open in the open. ESPN has now stated on Monday Night Football they will go back to what it used to be, which was they didn't show the national anthem. Because most of the time,
when people really didn't care who was standing and who wasn't.
And that really happened September 11th when everything was happening. Mm-hmm. They started to show that. And during the World Series that year, which I happened to attend, they did God Bless America after the 7th and all in the 8th inning.
They did that for a few years.
Yeah, I did that for a few years. So I get that piece of it. The only issue then becomes how do we solve problems? And again, I'm not getting political, but this applies to everything, including politics. Nobody wants to have substantive discussion or work their tail off to solve a problem. It's just, you're wrong, I'm right, get over it.
Right. Now, this is something that they do need to sit down and discuss, and it needs to be a civil discussion where two sides can come together and come to some sort of agreement. If the NFL really wants to squash the issue on the field, again, there needs to be a rule in place, and the penalties need to be just, okay? So, like I said, you get fined for having a stupid, out-of-place thing on your uniform. If you're going to be that trivial with that, then make a rule that says if you're going to be on the field for the anthem,
then
optional, on the field, optional, that's fine, no problem. You want to stay in the locker room, stay in the locker room. Right. If you're on the field, then you stand at attention for the anthem. If you don't, you miss the game.
I think
you're suspended for the game. That's a rule.
Perfect.
Everybody will abide by that rule. Those that come out on the field will understand they need to stand. Those that don't will stay in the locker room.
Matt, part of the problem is I think what we see a lot with companies, organizations in today's society, everyone's afraid of offending somebody. So what do? They don't take a strong stance on anything.
Which is why
and
they
the
need to
NFL
get in there and negotiate something on the side. Look, we're going to talk about this. We're with the head of the players union. They have the NFL reps in the room with them. They are going to come to some kind of agreement when it comes to these injustices and what they're talking about for the NFL in particular. Meanwhile, this is our rule.
Right.
I don't see a problem with that.
No, that's where I come down as, look, if I'm the NFL, I need to work with my players to give them the opportunity to do what they want. If they don't want to come out for the anthem, that's okay. You're not going to be fined. If you come out for the anthem and you don't stand, then we got a problem. Now, if I'm the players, I need to come out and as a fan, I need to hear from the players what are the top 3 issues? Clarity. What are the top 3 issues that they're concerned with in society? How do they want to go about fixing them? And how do I help? Because you know what? Even the fans that are mad about the anthem stuff, if you gave them justification for why you feel the way you do and it appeals to them, because if there's an injustice, most people will side with reason. And they will say, okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. Maybe I don't live that life because I live in a different environment. I have a different cultural background. But I get it, and I help you. So a great discussion, Matt. Great first segment, man. I love it. All right, we're going to step aside, and when we come back, we will close out the show. We'll talk a little bit about what we want to see in the Raiders-Packers game on Friday. You're listening to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio, 1148.
This is Mark Bedane, president of the Raiders. You're listening to Silver and Black today.
Hey, Mark.
Mark Bedane, who you guys talked about on Sports Adrenaline Las Vegas yesterday, was up in Reno. Looking at sites.
Stay in Napa, Mark.
But this
Come
is where
on.
we'll talk about that real quick, because when you were talking about an adrenaline, and so many times you guys talk about stuff on adrenaline, because I'm doing video for you guys when you do adrenaline, is you guys talk about things and I want to jump in so bad, but of course I'm not on the show, so I can't.
Jump in now.
So with Reno, again, it's a political deal, and you said yesterday, well, what if they just don't do it?
What if?
You don't.
But what if?
But you
But
can't.
what if?
Well, what if the Raiders move to Sheboygan, Wisconsin?
Like I always say, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, right? But no, I think the Napa
I got
thing
a better
is
site
so
for them.
perfect.
No, I got a better site for
ahead.
them. And it has nothing to do with the fact that my son might go to college there. Flagstaff, Arizona.
Flagstaff. Now there are 3 states they got to have taken over.
Well,
they
it's
already
close.
got California. Then we get
it's close. It's up in the mountains. They got a dome.
their
up
weather's
there.
weird though.
Yeah, but they got a dome.
All right.
They got a dome, so you can practice inside. But anyway, just because I'd like to sit up in the mountains during training camp.
No, yeah, that'd be cool. But I
Not
mean,
the Reno Mountains. But
I'd rather sit in wine country personally.
Look, these guys, with the deal that was cut to get the stadium here, I don't mind it being in Reno. I think they'll invest there. It ends up benefiting the university up there, even
which we don't want here. We
I
don't
don't
need
care.
to benefit their facilities and their university.
I dislike
UNLV has a hard enough time winning that damn cannon every year.
I have a UNLV degree, and I dislike UNLV more than UNR now.
Don't come on.
I do.
You
Doesn't
can't
mean I root
that.
for them.
You can't mean that.
Oh, I do.
It's Reno. First of all, it's Reno, not
I do.
UNR, not Nevada. It's Reno, and you can't say that's like blasphemy in this city, man.
I don't care.
I care.
I mean, you got to.
You're going to turn into Tony wearing blue at
You got a clown
campus.
college running the university. So when you have a clown college running the university,
I can't disagree with that at all.
I mean, they're running out of red noses. They got so many of them. Anyway, we are talking Raiders football, not UNLV. We'll leave that to the Sports Adrenaline guys. But we look ahead to the Packers game now. Again, Bill Rabeor from The Fan in Green Bay joined us earlier and gave us some insight here. Matt, let's talk about 3 things we want to see with the Raiders going to this game. Number one for me is, and we talked about it ad nauseum at the beginning of the show, is I want to see how Chris Warren III does against some first-team defense.
Okay, if that's the case, then he better be behind a first-team O-line.
Absolutely.
Right? Because
Absolutely.
you got to compare apples to apples.
Correct.
So if you got your first-team O-line in there, for the most part, I don't know if all 5 will be out there, but if you have your first-team line, you have Keith Smith in the game, breaking people's heads, smashing, opening up holes.
Love that guy.
And Chris Warren behind him running, then, I'd love to see it. But I don't think you're going to get – now,
I think
nobody in the NFL is going to average 6.5 yards a carry throughout the season. That's just – it's not going to happen. That's an insane average. Only the best backs in the league have career averages that are even close to that. But if this kid comes out and he's averaging 4.5 yards a carry, then
you got
the goods, man.
Absolutely.
Now,
but
he's
Matt,
not
here's
ready.
the thing.
He's not ready to be an every down back.
No.
We know that. But that doesn't mean he cannot be.
But you got to get touches for Lynch. You got to get touches for Martin. You got to get touches for Richard. Okay,
in season, not preseason.
Not preseason. So
I think Lynch knows how to play at this point.
I think
he should be
too.
all right.
I think you'll see Lynch for a series, and then
I do think you need to see Martin though, because
you do, because whether or not right, you got to see him in game. I agree with that. I'm rooting for the guy, but I agree with it.
Why?
But here's the thing.
He's a Buccaneer. Why are you so high on him?
I think he's got the potential. I think he's a secret weapon. He's a secret weapon.
You just like the muscle hamster moniker,
Corey
man.
on Facebook is giving me crap because he says that I don't want Warren to do well because of Doug Martin. It has nothing to do with it. I want them both to do well.
I'm with you, Corey. I believe
But
it.
if he'll get some time behind the first thing. Now, I'm not going to even talk about the quarterback thing because it is what it is. What I want to see in this game is the rookie defensive lineman, Mo Hurst, the H&H brothers, as I call him, and P.J. Hall, who I think P.J. Hall has just been a freaking hit so far.
Dude, that kid.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
He's strong.
Wow.
I want to see those guys work with some of the first unit defense.
Mm-hmm.
So in this game, I want to see them rotate in and really see how that meshes together when you have a Bruce Irvin out there. I wish I could say if you had a Khalil Mack out there. But when you get those guys in there, I want to see them work together.
One of the great things about when they do get Khalil Mack back in the lineup, which they will, let's dispose of these trade rumors and he's going to sit out for the season nonsense. I mean, at the minimum, 13-5 on the table. He's not walking away from that, and the Raiders aren't getting rid of that guy. But when Khalil Mack is back in the lineup, what are offenses going to do when it comes to Khalil Mack? You push the double team to his side, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
What does that do to everybody else up there?
Frees them up.
Frees them up for one-on-one. A guy like P.J. Hall, who's been, God, this kid is so explosive. That first step, I mean, just like a jackhammer, man. He just comes at you hard. We know what Mo Hurst is. I'm really excited to see Arden Key get more reps because I think he's going to be great. And Bruce Irvin, one-on-one, good luck.
Yeah,
good luck. I mean, that's the benefit of having a guy like Mac is not just because he is so dominant, because he draws double teams and it frees everybody else up.
And the third thing I want to see is continued progression with the defensive backs. And I think with the first-team offense out there, with that defensive line performance and the ends coming in, you're going to see it. I'm calling it now. I'm saying first 3 weeks of the season, we're going to see at least 4 interceptions for the Raiders' defensive backfield. It's a lot, but I'm just going on a limb.
Well,
I'm saying
they
that's
get
what
to
they're
play
gonna
the
do.
Broncos in week 2, so that should work out pretty
Week
well.
1 will be tough.
God,
but
that Rams game still scares me. It has nothing to do with yesterday because yesterday is, again, Vanilla Bowl. It didn't matter at all. I think the Rams are good. I think they're top 2 in the NFC, most likely.
By the way,
they're going to be good.
By the way, so I want to touch real quickly here at the end of the show on Khalil Mack.
Which we've waited pretty much till the end of the show to touch on Khalil Mack. That's good. I like that.
That is good. Although I have to tell you, and again, you guys joke about on Sports Adrenaline sources, but I've talked to a couple people who are very close to the situation, at least with the Raider organization, and it's not going well. I think we know that. And I'm going to tell you now, this is how I think it's going to go down. You can agree or disagree. I think what happens is he will come back for the season because he's got it. Nobody's going to skip those game checks. And then they'll tag him next year.
They'll
tag him next year.
They'll tag him, but that doesn't mean that he'll end up playing for the franchise tag. That gives them, again, more time to negotiate.
And it depends
you
on
tag him, you can
until
still
July 16th.
negotiate, right, to work out that deal. They're not going to let Mac go. That's my stance. Now, could I be wrong? Sure. But why? Look, you have to pay guys in the NFL. That's the way it works. That's the reason they manipulated the cap the way that they did, because they knew in Carr and in Mac they had 2 guys that were going to be top dollar players at their position. Mac is generational. He is a generational type player. You don't if you're the Giants, trade Lawrence Taylor because he wants more money. You don't, if you're the Ravens, trade Ray Lewis because he wants more money. You keep guys like that and you get Super Bowls because of guys like that. They already traded a Super Bowl away when they let John Gruden go to Tampa Bay 15 years ago.
I just don't know.
Make that mistake again.
And I've always said pay Khalil Mack. I've always been in that camp. At the same time, the realities of the economics, and I'm not saying they don't have the money to pay him. That's not what it is. It's about, do you pay him $22 million a year? I don't know. I mean, now you're getting up to a level where the average, if you look at the average now, when they do tagging too, they look at the top 5. That's how they get the salary. Yeah. And right now that's about 17, 18 million. That's before the Aaron Donald situation resolves itself too. So we'll see. Again, what I'm hearing, the organization is small. They are very family-oriented, family-run, and so I think that it operates like a family business much more than some of the other teams.
Let me leave you with this. The next guy in line to get the big payday for the Raiders is Amari Cooper.
That's true.
Fans, who would you rather have on your roster, Amari Cooper or Khalil Mack?
That's an easy question.
There you go.
Especially with a deeper receiver core.
There you go.
We didn't even get to talk about what they're going to do at receiver with Whalen and Switzer and all those guys because they're running out of spots.
Still 2 more preseason games left, man.
Oh, yeah. Listen, we want to thank you guys. Make sure you check out the website, silverandblacktoday.com. Also, this show will be up archived on our website here by the end of the day. We appreciate you listening. Again, for our engineer, Colin Pulicella, Tony Cordasco, our director on the video side, my co-host, Matt Gutierrez. We sign off, but we never say goodbye, Raider Nation. Thanks for listening. And until next week, may the autumn wind always be at your back. See you later.